We were in Hannibal, Missouri recently. We flew into St. Louis, rented a car, and drove up. And fun fact, Missouri is bordered by more states than any other state. It's tied for number one with Tennessee. 8 different states border Missouri. So Hannibal is on the Mississippi River northwest of St. Louis. And when we got to Hannibal, one of the main streets we drove down was Broadway, going southwest. And this is an old theater we saw along the way. Pretty cool marquee. And as we drove southwest, I saw this tower of an old building coming up. And this is that building. We had to stop and take a look at it. And this was a set of buildings across the street. And this is looking up the front facade of the building. It's completely vacant now, unused. One of the windows is boarded up. It was a federal building that took a couple years to build, finished in 1884. It was in federal hands for almost 100 years, and they gave it to the city of Hannibal in 1982. And I read they tried different usages of it, like a restaurant and such, but now it appears to be completely vacant. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, so hopefully this building can be preserved and brought back to life. It's at 600 Broadway, and this is what it looked like back in the day. We're in Hannibal, Missouri, and we're just driving around a little bit, and we came across this really interesting, impressive building. It doesn't say what it is or was. It must have been an official building because there's a flagpole here, and it's right across the street from this old theater, or now it's a banquet center. And we're seeing some buildings that are, that's just the facade, you can see right through it. This is driving west on Broadway. Building up here. Old church. Marion County. We took a right off of Broadway and went up the hill and discovered this really interesting mansion. It's a law office now because it's near the Marion County Courthouse. Look at this house is down this street. As we go up the hill. Look at that. Like there's some peeling paint and stuff, but wow, what a house. The Rock Cliff Mansion. Guided tours daily. What does it say? Use Hill Street entrance. This probably was an old mansion too. Now it's maybe subdivided. Or maybe it's still a house. A lot of interesting architecture here. East towards the Mississippi and Illinois across the way. Portico here. The Rock Cliff Mansion. It says it's a B&B. Downtown Hannibal. That way you can see the Mississippi in the distance. Nice fountain through there. They got a man lift here, like they're going to use it to do some painting, chipping and painting. Maybe they've already started the scraping here. Here's the town below. Wow, look at those columns. So we didn't know what to expect. We saw this peeling paint of this big grand house, and my wife went ahead and went into the house, and here's the front door. And when we got inside, we realized what a find this house is. Just a powerhouse of interior decoration from the late 1800s. So when we got there, right as soon as we got in, one of the owners was about ready to lead another couple on a tour, and we signed on and joined the tour, and boom, we got going right away. And this is the owner, Juan Ruiz. He uses a little flashlight to point things out, and he was just constantly pointing things out. He really knew the house. It turns out he lives in the house also, but he just knew every detail. It was really a very good tour, a 10 out of 10 tour. And this is just one of the beautiful lamps. And this was an interesting room because the way they designed it is they would go from a dark room to a bright room. So the contrast was really interesting, and the stained glass was really interesting. And he was explaining how there was a dual system of gas and early electric, so they used both. And this is that other couple. We're in the master dining room, and this is the kitchen for the staff, so they had a simpler table to sit around. And one of the things he had just pointed out to us, I'm taking a picture of, is they had like a communication system that they could talk between floors in the house. So you'd speak into one side and listen through the other. Somehow it worked. After looking at the first floor, we went up grand staircase to the second floor. And one of the showcases of the second floor as you go up is this beautiful stained glass window. And when you get up to the second floor, it's an open floor plan with all the bedrooms on the second floor facing a central gathering place, hallway. It's wider than a hallway in the middle, sort of around a square. And we went through each of the bedrooms. A lot of them had canopy beds like this with chandeliers and fireplaces, and most of the bedrooms had their own private bathroom. And this is just focusing on one of the beautiful fireplaces with ceramic tile. And the reason I took this picture, he was explaining to us that they used gas. They had to vent it out of the house so that people didn't potentially get asphyxiated. So the grills around the mast of the chandelier, they're open and they feed a ventilation system that takes any potential toxic gases out of the house. And they even had some of the closets with, I don't know whether this was original clothing or this is just vintage clothing to show what people wore back in the day, but it was interesting. Lent more character to the house. You felt like you were really stepping back in time. And this is another bed with a kind of a royal canopy over the bed, very monarch-like. And here he was explaining to us how they mixed the hot and cold water back in the day, and that's what that silver cylinder is, and you could adjust it that way. And here are some family pictures of the Cruikshank family. Mr. Cruikshank, John J. Cruikshank, he made his money in lumbering, and that's how he was able to afford such a beautiful, expensive house. One of the things the owner, Juan, was telling us, and we had to look stuff up because he was rattling off so many figures, I wanted to double check what I was hearing, but basically the house in 1898, when it was built, it cost $125,000, but that'd be worth $4.3 million in today's dollars. And then they furnished it for another $50,000, so the furnishings alone would be $1.92 million just for the furnishings. So it all adds up to more than $6 million. So the house was built in 1898, and he was also telling us that they had a party for Mark Twain when he came back to Hannibal. Mark Twain grew up in Hannibal, and he came back once, and the town feted him. So they had a party at this mansion for 300 people, and I think a lot of other people also came over and above the 300 guest list. Here's another beautiful canopy bed. One thing he mentioned to us also on the tour is the tallest member of the Cruikshank family was 5'3". So the beds were designed for the residents, and they might tend to be on the short side. And this is a view from a bedroom looking out towards the central hallway and as well as to the bathroom on the left. It's a very nice open floor plan. It was designed that way to promote promote circulation through the house, air circulation, because in the summer it can get very hot in this area of the country and humid. And this is another view looking back into 2 different bedrooms from the central hallway. And there's beautiful paintings on the walls, beautiful picture on the left. And this is just the highlight of the whole house. What a staircase. Beautiful. And we went up to the 3rd floor, and they have a billiards room and an area for table games. You just notice the attention to detail everywhere, including the wallpapering that's on the walls and goes up the ceiling. Beautiful, top to bottom. And this is just a beautiful fireplace with stained glass. I've never seen that before. And look at the ornate wallpaper. And the wallpapering even extends to the ceiling papering. Just exquisite. And also in the 3rd floor, in this big room, they have a little elevated stage. That's where musicians would play when they had parties. It's nice to have a little stage in your house for musicians to play at. And this is a picture from back in the day. It doesn't look too much different from today, thankfully. Both houses are still there. And just coming back down the staircase into that central foyer is just a great entrance to this house. And as I mentioned, the house in the earlier picture from back in the day, it's still there. And as he explained to us, Mr. Cruikshank died, and Mrs. Cruikshank and the kids, they wound up moving to the house next door, and this house stood vacant for many, many years, and it was ultimately sold to one owner, and then it was resold. But when it was sold with all the furnishings in it. And I don't know whether the clothes came with it too. Just unusual that the whole thing was sold as one, but the interior decorations are really something. So what it was sold for, we were reading, was for less than what it was originally built for. It is so valuable, keep appreciating in price. And we had our picture taken out front. One thing I asked the owner at the end is, I said I saw a sign that said it was a B&B, but when he was giving us the tour, I never had that impression that it was still a B&B. And so I asked him, and he goes, oh yes, we still operate it as a bed and breakfast, and people are free to stay in all those beautiful bedrooms, and they can have the run of the house, and they serve them breakfast in the morning. And I thought, wow, it's almost like night at the museum. It's such a beautiful house. It's almost like too nice to allow people to stay at, but they do allow people. And looked up the reviews, and you could not find a better review of a place. TripAdvisor gives it its Traveler's Choice Awards. I guess you get an award like that when you get a 5 out of 5 rating. And look at all the reviews, 839 reviews. And then Google reviews, another 455 people have reviewed it, and it gets a 4.7 out of 5, which is very high. So this place is very highly rated, and there's even a Wikipedia page you can read a little bit more about the house, and there's other things online you can read about. It's very interesting. And this is a view from the top of the hill, and after I looked at my pictures, I realized this is that federal building that we saw down on Broadway with that beautiful tower. Hope that building can be fixed up. And this was kind of shocking to me, is just when you look down the hill in another direction, these are residences, very small, very dilapidated. I think they're still lived in. Those are their neighbors right down the hill. So in Hannibal, it really runs the gamut from very grand to very humble. After we left Rockcliffe Mansion, the owner gave us directions how to go to see Mark Twain's boyhood home, which is where we went to next. And these are the neighbors. This must have been the street we came up, 5th Street.
So there's some amazing houses up there too.
I like the house with the cupola.
I'm gonna make a left and swing.
Okay.
Is that okay? Feeling we're going down that way.
pictures on the roof.
Sherman Potter, who was he? Colonel Sherman Potter.
Probably Civil War.
His house.
But who was he for? The Confederates or the Union? Because this was a border state. I don't see any houses with a white picket fence. Twain dinette.
This is what he told me, go towards the river.
I guess maybe that's where the benches are. So we're right down here at the end of the street of Hill Street. Becky Thatcher's house, which is beautifully redone. And Tom Sawyer's fence. So that must be Tom Sawyer's house, huh? And the building next door. So his dad was a lawyer, and his office is right across the street from where he lived. So we made it down to the bottom of the street near the downtown and found Tom Sawyer's house with the picket fence that he got his friends to paint and made them feel like they were enjoying it. And this is the house that Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, actually grew up in Hannibal. Nearby there are some informational signs. The sign on the left shows a picture of Samuel Clemens when he was 15. He later became a riverboat pilot on the Mississippi and did that until the start of the Civil War in 1861. And then in his mid-20s, he followed his older brother, who was 10 years older, out to the Nevada territory and got his writing career sort of started out there. And then came back east, became famous, but came back to Hannibal in later years when he was 67. That time that we learned about up at the mansion on the hill, that he came back and he was given a big celebration for having been so successful. This is a recreation of Becky Thatcher's house across the street. She was a character in his novels. And also across the street is the office that his dad used as a justice of the peace. His dad learned to be a lawyer, but he was also involved in various stores, general stores, and other retail that he ran, everything he could think of to raise a family of 7 kids. Far away from Hannibal, this is in Hartford, Connecticut. This is the house that Mark Twain had built before he had written his famous novels. He'd done some writing, but most of the money for this house came from his wife. His wife was the daughter of a man who made a lot of money in the coal business in New York State and Pennsylvania. Beautiful house, far away from Hannibal, Missouri. So another side attraction my wife saw was to this lighthouse, Mark Twain's lighthouse. And she told me to walk up to it to get some exercise. And I'll meet her back down in the downtown, but I don't think she realized how many staircases there are to get here. It's like walking up to the top of a 30-story tall building. So I'll do this last set of stairs here. See what I can see from up top. So you can't go in the lighthouse, at least now it's locked. So you could walk up more steps. But if I'm reading the sign correctly, it said that it's 244 steps from a statue, which I take is down in the town, down there, up to here. And there's the Mississippi River flowing gently by. There's an island in the middle between Missouri and Illinois. I don't know who claims that island. And you can come down to the river from the Illinois side too. All right, let me go back down and see what else is going on in the downtown in Hannibal. So this is looking down the main commercial street of Hannibal. As we come down the last set of stairs, there's like a bikini bar over there. Seems kind of out of place for a historical town, but hey, whatever. So, here's just a little bit of the downtown. Walking south, parallel to the river. Little banner. And they're playing like beanbag toss over there. At another bar. So there's a range of activities to do here in Hannibal. Just a little look as we mosey our way down the street. Main Street.
Babe Brick Oven. That place might have been right up there. Got a decent.
Yeah, but do you want to go there?
Yeah, it's pizza.
I thought you didn't want pizza.
No, I said pizza.
Oh, okay. Could have stayed at the Hotel Mark Twain. A little longer look here. They got a yoga place. And we've decided we're going to try to eat an early dinner here. There's some choppers in town. So they have Mark Twain Museum, they have a Mark Twain Hotel, everything's Mark Twain. They have art galleries. And ice cream. Just wanted to show some pictures of some of the historic buildings in downtown Hannibal before we move over to the river. This was a nice looking yellow building up the street. These are two storefronts. The one on the right is vacant if anyone's interested in setting up shop in Hannibal. And then the storefront on the right is a brewing company, and the storefront on the left, which looks really nice, is another vacant storefront suitable for someone starting up a business here. Main Street on downtown Hannibal is really nice with a lot of historic buildings, including this store, really cool looking store, Mississippi Marketplace. And then you see various buildings in town that have these cupolas on top, and this is an old stone building, really cool looking. All right, we're going to check out Little Riverwalk here after walking around the downtown. And we're going to probably take that bridge across over to Illinois, up to Quincy. Here's the mighty Mississippi. There's barges sitting out there, but nothing's moving on the river. Nice breeze. Must be a restaurant or something here. And some tugboats. Looking north up the Mississippi through some bridges. After dinner, we drove over to the Waterside Park. They have a nice river walk in Hannibal. Something that not every town that we visited in Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois has. So they take advantage of the river here in Hannibal. And you can look up the river, and there's a couple of bridges in the distance. The first one is a roadway bridge that I believe replaced another bridge that was more closer to the downtown. So it's kind of good, actually, that the highway bridge has been moved further north away from the downtown. Gives the downtown a little breathing space. And one thing we realized, there was a paddle wheel boat that was docked along the waterside, and they have river cruises, including a dinner cruise. And when we were walking there, it was before 6:30 p.m. and people were waiting to board the riverboat cruise, and there were musicians taking their instruments onto the boat. So they were going to have a river dinner cruise. So that'd be pretty nice. So that's going on. And then also in town on the left, there's signs for trolleys that drive around town. So if you want to get a guided tour that way, it's a good idea. Get various options. And that's a view looking up the Mississippi. And one thing I've noticed, and I might comment on in future videos, is there's various parts of the rivers, major American rivers, where there's nothing on the side. Sometimes it's overdeveloped along the river, but a lot of times it's going back to what it looked like back in the day, just total natural forest along the river. And there's a statue here in town that commemorates that Mark Twain, he apprenticed and then he became a fully licensed pilot so he could actually drive a paddle wheel boat up and down the river, which he did for a couple of years. And one thing I noticed here is that this statue was donated to the city of Hannibal by a family who live in East Hannibal, Illinois. I didn't even know there was an East Hannibal, so it made me look that up. And there's where East Hannibal is across the river. It's an unincorporated area. So we took pictures by the statue of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, riverboat captain and future famous author. Finally, I just wanted to show a couple pictures of murals we saw on the wall. This is of the train that used to come into Hannibal. And what a beautiful train station. Couldn't help but notice. And here's another train mural from later on when the trains were looking art moderne in the 30s and 40s. And there's that train station again over to the right. So I had to look up this train station. I wanted to see if it was still standing. We didn't notice it when we were driving around. Don't know if it is still standing, but what a beautiful station they had here in Hannibal. And the street trolleys too. Would be kind of cool if that could be brought back. I think of that in so many different cities. That'd be so neat. They once had like cable cars like San Francisco. If they could bring them back, it would just really be fun to see a city going around on a trolley like this. They had one from 1878 to 1925. And Hannibal was quite the stylish place. It's where you could get boots like this for ladies. Very nice. And lastly, you've got to have a mural about Mark Twain and the riverboats and Tom Sawyer, Becky Thatcher, everything that has to do with his novels. It was the reason we came to Hannibal. I wanted to see what history there was associated with Mark Twain, and we found that there were a lot of interesting things about the town. So we stayed longer than we thought we would, and we enjoyed it more than we thought we would. So that's Hannibal, Missouri. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.